Okay, well, very good. Our recording has started. Thank you all for being here today. We have a really good turnout for this program. I want to thank Sean Gray from the Michigan office for the U.S. Small Business Administration for being with us. We pulled this webinar together very, very quickly because we know this program is top of mind for many of our food and restaurant businesses here in Shiawassee County, as I know it is across the region, state, country. So our goal here today is to have you all learn from Sean about the details of this program, what the application is, what it's all about, and then obviously we want to be able to leave some time as well for questions for all of you too. So what we'll do, we'll just jump right in. Sean, we'll turn it over to you. Hopefully we can do this pretty quick.
Yep.
It might be about a half-hour program, so we'll just keep her moving here. So,
awesome.
With that, Sean from the Michigan office of the SBA. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you so much, Justin, and thanks for having me. Really excited to give everyone an overview of this program. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yep, you're good.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, and hopefully you can also see the PowerPoint.
Yep, I can see it. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is an attempt at helping to make restaurants whole from their losses due to the pandemic, or their losses in revenue anyway due to the pandemic. So it's effectively a way to compare their 2019 revenues to their 2020 revenues and fix that gap a bit, especially if Paycheck Protection Program and EIDL didn't bridge that gap already. So I'll talk through what the requirements are and what folks can expect from this program. And I'll go ahead and get started. So the Restaurant Revitalization Fund was passed as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. It became law on March 11, 2021. There's $28.6 billion appropriated for the program. So if you think about all the restaurants in the country, that's not a ton of money. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to get this money out the door and, over time see it replenished. But that's, of course, a congressional matter, not up to us. So the appropriation will remain available until it's fully expended. And one thing about this program is that they actually really want people to use the hotline for this program. So they've set up a hotline that offers support in English and 8 other languages, including Hmong, Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, and a couple others. And you can call that hotline at 1-844-279-8898. So if I'm not able to answer a question on this call, don't hesitate to call that hotline because they're there to answer questions. So funds for this program must be used for eligible uses no later than March 11, 2023. We'll talk more about that. Eligible entities include, of course, restaurants, food stands, food trucks, food carts, caterers, bars, saloons, lounges, taverns, snack and non-alcoholic beverage bars such as coffee shops and ice cream shops. Also bakeries. So, but when you get into bakeries, brew pubs, breweries, wineries, distilleries, inns, etc., in the case of those businesses, they have to show that 33% of their gross receipts are from sales to the public. So this program really wants to touch the businesses that were impacted by not being able to do direct sales to the public. So the threshold for that, or being able to show that, is that you need to be able to show that in 2019, or depending on the calculation you use, and we'll come to that, that you need to be able to show that 33% of your gross receipts were based on sales to the public. Also important to note is that yesterday it was announced by our administrator that the registration for this program will open on Friday, and then you'll actually be able to submit applications as of Monday. So that's something to bear in mind. The SBA may provide funding up to $5 million per location, not to exceed $10 million total for the applicant and any affiliated businesses. And we'll talk about affiliation a little bit too. Minimum award is $1,000. So there's 3 different ways, to calculate what your award would be. And if it's below $1,000, they do not want you to apply for the programs. Applicants do not need to be registered in the SAM system, which is our system of awards management. And the SBA is not requiring DUNS or CAGE identifiers either. You can use your EIN, you can use an individual taxpayer identification number, or a social security number as well. Who is ineligible? Entities are ineligible if any of the following apply. The entity is a state or local government operated business. As of March 13th, 2020, owns or operates, together with any affiliated businesses, more than 20 locations, regardless of whether those locations business under the same or different names or are in different industries. So that's a really important note. If you own 5 locations of a restaurant or restaurants, and then you also own 16 car washes, that's going to actually put you outside of the parameters for this program. If you have 20, if you have more than 20 locations, and as I mentioned, they don't even have to be in the same industry, then you will not be eligible for this program. Something to bear in mind. Has a pending application or has received the Shutter Venue Operators Grant, is a publicly traded company. So these are also, this is a continuation of ineligibility. If it's a publicly traded company, if they're permanently closed, if they're a nonprofit organization, or if they're not eligible for funding of at least $1,000. Those are all ineligible. Who is eligible? So that would be C Corps, S Corps, partnerships, LLCs, sole proprietors, self-employed individuals, independent contractors, tribal businesses, and LLCs that are tax exempt for sole proprietors. Also, B corporations are eligible, but they just need to select either C Corp or S Corp, depending on how they're taxed. Franchises are eligible. However, the franchise needs to be listed on the SBA franchise directory. In the application portal, applicants will be able to look up their entity on the franchise directory. For brands that are not listed in the directory, including brands that have been denied from being listed in the directory because of affiliation issues, the franchisor needs to submit the franchise disclosure documents or other agreements, and those will be reviewed, which will take a bit longer. So that could add some time if you're in an unapproved franchise. Bankruptcies do not necessarily make you ineligible, but there are some conditions. So an applicant that's operating under an approved plan of reorganization under either Chapter 11, Chapter 12, or Chapter 13 bankruptcy and meeting all program requirements are eligible for funding. An applicant is not eligible if it has permanently closed, filed Chapter 7 liquidation bankruptcy, or filed for either a Chapter 7, 11, 12, or 13 bankruptcy, but are not under an approved plan of reorganization. Permanently closed does not include businesses that are temporarily closed due to state or local restrictions or other pandemic causes, but are still in operation or have reopened. How do other SBA relief programs impact the Restaurant Revitalization Fund? The Paycheck Protection Program loan is one in particular that has an impact. Any funds that you've already received through the Paycheck Protection Program will be subtracted from the applicant's final funding amount. You are verified using the EIN, ITIN, or Social Security number associated with your PPP loans, and they will, make sure that they research that. If the applicant received a Paycheck Protection Program loan, the applicant must use the same EIN number for its Restaurant Revitalization Fund application as it used in its PPP application. If an applicant applied for a first draw PPP loan for multiple locations under one EIN and subsequently applied for a second draw loan under different EINs, the applicant must provide both EINs for each of those entities that received the second draw loan. Upon applying for Restaurant Revitalization Fund, you must also withdraw any outstanding PPP application. So one interesting thing about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund program is that it actually asks you to attest to what support you've received from the federal government. So the issue is you can't attest if you still have a pending PPP application out there. So they want to see the total picture of what you received support from other programs when you apply for this. So if you have a pending PPP loan, you would need to withdraw it, or you would need to wait until it was done so that you could actually indicate that loan along with this application. All applicants must certify that current economic uncertainty makes the funding request necessary to support ongoing or anticipated operations. So it's not sort of the type of loan you'd want to get if you had other options, or I'm sorry, it's not a loan. It's not the type of thing you want to apply for if you have other options. But for most of the businesses that are in the restaurant industry and have at least 33% exposure to public, I mean, it could be a pretty easy case. What's eligible? What are the eligible uses of funds? You can use the fund to program for business expenses such as business payroll costs, including sick leave, business utility payments, business maintenance expenses, business supplies, including PPE, also business food and beverage expenses, including raw materials, certain supplier costs, business operating expenses such as insurance, marketing, fees, licenses, legal, point of sale equipment, etc. You can also use it for construction expenses, but it's typically intended for construction of outdoor seating, which is something that many businesses in this industry are investing in due to the nature of the pandemic. So if you have had outdoor seating constructed, you can include that as an expense. You can even include your own labor if you constructed it yourself, but you have to make sure that you carefully accounted for your labor. Expansion costs are ineligible. Much like the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, this is not a growth a resource for funds to grow. This is a fund that's principally set up to help stabilize your business based on losses. Also, you can pay payments on any business mortgage obligation, both principal and interest. This does not include any prepayment of principal or interest, and you can also include payments on your debt service as well. One interesting thing about this is that you can actually make payments back to February 15th of 2020. So if you are behind on payments, you can get caught up back to February 15th, 2020, not further back than that. And you can include, you can pay the balance of a credit card or line, because those are intended to revolve. You're actually able to make those, to wipe out those types of things. When do I have to use the funds? The funds must be spent on expenses that were or are incurred between February 15, 2020 and March 11, 2023. If the business permanently closes after receiving funds, the cover period will end when the business permanently closes on or on March 11, 2023, whichever occurs sooner. Any funds not spent on eligible expenses by the time the cover period ends must be returned to the government. When do I have to use the funds continued? You do actually have to submit a use of funds assessment. After the total award funds have been exhausted, entities must provide a detailed expenditure report and certification for the required period. Until the applicant completes the use of funds assessment, beginning December 2021, applicants are required to provide self-reported, unaudited data detailing use of distributed funds each year through 2023. The SBA will provide additional guidance that outlines the detailed reporting requirements and procedures in the coming weeks. There's 3 different calculations. I'll go over the first calculation now in terms of how do you calculate what your potential award might be. Calculation 1 is for applicants who are in operations prior to or on January 1, 2019. That calculation is basically 2019 gross receipts minus 2020 gross receipts minus PPP loan amounts. For calculation 2, applicants that began operation partially through 2019, average 2019 monthly gross receipts times 12 minus 2020 gross receipts minus PPP loan amounts. Applications that began operation partially in 2019 may choose to use calculation 2 or calculation 3. However, calculation 3 could require a longer processing time, and we'll show you why that is. So calculation 3 is for applicants that began operations on or between January 1, 2020 and March 10, 2021, and applicants not yet open, but who have incurred eligible expenses as of March 11, 2021. Total amount spent. The calculation is total amount spent on eligible expenses between February 15, 2020 and March 11, 2021, minus 2020 and 2021 gross receipts minus PPP loan amounts. So that can be somewhat helpful for businesses that have, that were pre-revenue. Some of this happened. I've talked to a lot of those businesses and having a difficult time because of many instances didn't have payroll because they were pre-launch in some cases. So this program does offer something for them depending on what types of expenses they have. So this calculation, however, calculation 3, will get a little bit of extra scrutiny just because in some instances the accounting that needs to be done for pre-revenue businesses is going to be a little bit more closely monitored just to make sure that we're not covering things that we shouldn't be covering. Some of the things that you can exclude from your 2020 gross receipts for the calculation: you can exclude your Paycheck Protection Program loan from your gross receipts. You would exclude certain SBA payments. You would also exclude SBA economic injury, economic injury disaster loan, or EIDL advance or targeted EIDL and other grant funds from the CARES Act. You can exclude those from your gross receipts. You can also exclude any state and local business grants from your gross receipts. So the way to apply would be directly through the SBA platform at restaurants.sba.gov. As I mentioned, you can register for that site as of Friday afternoon, and you should be able to submit your application by Monday. So there's also a way to apply through your point of sale vendor, which is a really interesting opportunity. So we have an agreement with Square, Toast, Aloha, and Clover to support their clients. And basically, Square and Toast clients will be able to apply directly through the Square and Toast platform, and it'll plug in your financial activity and your POS activity into your application, and should make it pretty seamless. Clover and Aloha will produce a POS gross receipt report that you can submit that will effectively help you, get to the point where you're sort of fast-tracked through the process, because really, for any of these calculations, you're going to need to submit financials. If you have one of these POS processors sort of putting their stamp of approval on the financials, then that actually helps validate it. And so that's one opportunity for people who are using Square, Toast, Aloha, or Clover. There's also a way to apply via phone, but it's not recommended. A telephonic application will take longer. You can call 844-279-8898. So it's recommended that if you can apply through the website or through your point of sale vendor, you do that. What documents do I need in order to apply? So you'll need the application form, which is actually a good thing for you to take a look at if you're interested in this program, because it's 14 pages. It seems really long, but really it's long because it has all three of these calculations in it. Once you determine which of those calculations make sense for your business, that sort of makes it a little bit simpler to understand. The one barrier in the application that I want to call out or highlight is that, affiliation can be a very legalistic term, and so I don't want people to be intimidated by the word affiliation. Typically, for most SBA programs, when we talk about affiliates, we're trying to figure out who you are in business with, mostly because we want to know if you have business partners who have, potentially had bad experiences where they maybe have walked away from federal debt, or if you have business partners who the federal government does not do business with, such as certain government regimes and other entities that we don't do business with, or who are connected to industries that we can't lend in. But in this case, they're really trying to make sure that your entity and your business is below that 20 locations, or at or below the 20 location threshold. So they're looking at affiliation principally to determine if your ownership group has more locations than is allowable for the program. Verification for tax information. Of course, you'll need your IRS Form 4506T so that we can get access to your tax transcripts. We'll need gross receipt documentation. Any of the following documents demonstrates gross receipts and, if applicable, eligible expenses. We'll need your business tax returns, IRS Form 1040. For partnerships, we'll need your IRS Form 1065. We'll need bank statements, externally or internally prepared financial statements, such as income statements and profit and loss statements, and also POS point of sale reports, including the IRS Form 1099K. So for each calculation, there's sort of a different set of needs. So for calculation 1 and 2, you'll need the application, tax verification, so that we can get your tax transcripts, as I mentioned. We'll need your 2019 gross receipts and tax returns, and we'll need 3 months of bank statements. Also, 2020 gross receipts, at least one of these options. So the preferred option is that you submit your federal tax return if filed, and your point of sale report. We will accept externally or internally prepared financial statements such as income statement or profit and loss, but it can delay your application. So for calculation 3, as I mentioned, there's going to be a little bit of extra scrutiny for this calculation. will require the application form, your tax verification, 3 months of bank statements, and basically so we can support that the account is linked to your business activity. Also, we'll need 2020 and 2021 gross receipts. And the preferred way of seeing that is the 2020 federal tax returns or your 2020 returns. Even if they're not yet filed, you can submit them prepared, but not yet filed if you need to. Also, your 2020 point of sale receipts, your 2021 point of sale reports as well. Eligible expense documentation. Effectively, at least one of these items is required. We prefer if you had a comfort letter from your CPA, which is basically just a letter where your CPA indicates that they're comfortable with the portrayal of your financial picture in your application. If applicant submits expenses related to the following categories, appropriate documentation will be needed. Payroll documents, if you're looking for payroll expenses. Outdoor seating expenditures, so if you are looking for support in the construction of outdoor seating, we'll need to see invoices and payments for that. And if it's business debt, we will need to see lender loan statements for that debt. We'll accept externally or internally prepared financial statements as mentioned, but it will again potentially delay your application. What documents do I need in order to apply continued? In addition to the documents on the prior slide, for applicants that are a brew pub, tasting room, tap room, brewery, winery, distillery, or bakery, documents evidencing that on-site sales to the public comprise at least 33% of gross receipts for 2019, which may include tax, trade bureau forms, state and local forms filed, internally created reports from inventory management, sales reporting, or accounting software. For businesses that opened in 2020, your original business model needed to have contemplated at least 33% of gross receipts in on-site sales to the public. So if you have a business where you have clearly made no accommodation for public sales in 2020, when you open, if you're looking at sort of that window, then it's going to be tough to prove that you had the intent to sell to the public directly, which is what this program is looking to impact. There is, as I mentioned, a call center where you can call to get support. You're also welcome to reach out to our local district office, which is available at sba.gov/MI. There's help, as I mentioned, available in multiple languages. I want to talk really briefly about some of the best practices in terms of how to get your award. You want to provide complete documentation. Applications with incomplete documentation will be rejected. The review process will restart when complete documentation is provided, but delays could jeopardize the applicant receiving an award at all. You want to leverage your resources. While not required, the use of CPAs and other accounting professionals may help ensure a complete and well-documented application. Application corrections, we are not able locally to make corrections on your behalf. If you require a correction, you'll need to contact the call center for the program. Applicants who still intend to apply for Paycheck Protection Program, you are advised to complete your PPP application in advance of applying for a Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And so that's something to bear in mind. If you're still trying to figure out your PPP situation, you may need to delay an application for this program. When can you apply? So there's a pilot period where they invited specific groups of borrowers randomly selected from the PPP borrower roles to pilot the program and basically to test out the application. Of course, they were not able to submit, or I'm sorry, to receive funds until the program is open to the public at application launch. So there were some folks selected to sort of test out the process, which is helpful because, as you saw with the Shutter Venue Operators Grant, when there's hiccups, it really slows things down a lot. And so it's great to have folks sort of try the system out so you can find those hiccups before you launch it more widely. There is a priority period for the first 21 days of the program. During the initial 21-day period of the program, the SBA will accept applications from eligible applicants, all eligible applicants. Only applications from all businesses owned by women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged applicants will be funded in that period. All eligible applications will be processed or funded at day 22 until funding is exhausted. And I'm going to talk about what that priority group looks like as well. So small businesses that are 51% owned or managed by women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged businesses, socially and economically disadvantaged individuals qualify for this. So the applicants are going to self-certify this in their application. Self-certification just basically means that you're stating that this is true. For example, an applicant that has 5 owners, each owning 20% of the applicant. 2 of the owners are veterans, and 1 owner is a socially and economically disadvantaged individual. So that would put their number at 60%, which is above the 51% threshold. Socially disadvantaged individuals are those who have been subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias because of their identity as a member of a group without regard to their individual qualities. Individuals who are members of the following groups are presumed to be socially disadvantaged: Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, including Alaska Natives and Native Hawaiians, Asian Pacific Americans, and subcontinent Asian Americans. Economically disadvantaged individuals are those socially disadvantaged individuals whose ability to compete in the free enterprise system has been impaired due to diminished capital and credit opportunities as compared to others in the same business area who are not socially disadvantaged. Entities that are reorganized for purposes of qualification for the priority period will result in automatic disqualification. That's something to bear in mind. There also are set-asides in this program. So there's $5 billion set aside for applicants with 2019 gross receipts of not more than $500,000. There's an additional $4 billion set aside for applicants with 2019 gross receipts from $501,000 to $1.5 million. And there's an additional $500 million set aside for applicants with 2019 gross receipts of not more than $50,000. So this is one way to sort of make sure that that sort of smaller end of the spectrum and the middle get some access to funding. So it's sort of not just a free-for-all for larger restaurant groups with lots of support from accountants and other ways to get some of this data processed quickly. So they're trying to make sure that funds remain available for some of the smaller entities in the group. I will do my very best to answer any questions that you guys have, but hopefully you can look back to this recording, and hopefully the things I have said will remain in effect, and there won't be too many changes, but I'll do my best to answer the questions if you have them.
Great. Thank you, Sean. A lot of information, great information. Appreciate your time in talking with us. Does anyone have any questions for Sean? Please go ahead and just jump right on in. Anyone have any questions?
If there has been a change in ownership in the business between 2019 and 20, is that business still eligible to participate?
The business is likely eligible. It's going to be a matter of which of those calculations make sense for you. So let's see here. I think I talked to someone who had this case earlier this week, actually. Trying to find the correct slide. So there's the calculations, and basically, it sounds like it could be either you'll need to do calculation 2 or, well, probably 2 or 3, I'm guessing, depending on when it changed hands. You'll need to determine which calculation makes sense for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, Chuck Robertson, you've got your hand up. Go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Chuck, or we can't hear you. Nope. Try it again. Let's see. No, still muted. Maybe try to unmute again. It could be, there's a mute button on Teams, but then there's also a mute button on the computer itself. So maybe you might want to check both of those. This has all happened to us over the last year. It's happened to me several times.
Who's trying to speak? I could see if I can unmute them if they're...
Charles Robertson.
Oh, no, yeah, he doesn't look to be muted.
Yeah. So that's why I'm wondering, maybe your computer is muted, Chuck, and not the Teams.
Is Chuck able to put his question into the comments?
Yeah, there you go, Chuck. If you want to type your question into the comments, thank you, Em. And then we can go from there. While you're typing, anyone else have any questions for Sean? Let's see. Oh,
I have one. I'm on the phone.
yeah, go ahead.
My name is Rick. What about companies such as golf courses or bowling alleys that operate two different types of businesses but under the same EIN number? Is it possible to separate food and beverage revenue from, say, golf revenue when applying, or all as one company?
So if it's in the same entity, so if you own that as a separate entity, then you it may be a little easier. If it is within your business model, and it would need to be, if it's sort of baked into your business model and not separated out or in a separate entity, it would need to be 33. Oh, it would need to be at least 33% of your revenue.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Good question. Anybody else have any questions? I don't know if Chuck, if you're unmuted now. Anyone else have anything? No. Somebody type something in. The bank statements, does it matter what months?
Yeah, you would likely need to show your most recent 3 months. They want to see your, I mean, if we're talking about your business, the one someone asked us last night, and presuming it's your business bank statement, they would want to see pretty much the full 3 months of your business bank statements to sort of see the activity. Just sort of see the flow of revenue in your account.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? We want to be respectful of everyone's time. Sean's, oh, here we go. Someone said 1099K both years. That was typed into the chat here.
Likely, yep. You're gonna probably need to show for 2019 and 2020. I always recommend, if you can submit your full return in these programs, I recommend to do it, because what tends to happen is if someone touches your application and there's a document they're looking for, that person is likely to put it down and send you a notice that they are missing a piece of documentation. So then what happens is, you send in that one piece and you're presuming it's likely to be someone different, not the first person. It'll be some new person who will pick up your application. Maybe they'll see all of the stuff you attached previously, and maybe they won't, but they certainly will have that one new piece, right? So sometimes I say, if you can compile everything and just send everything, so there's nothing people are looking for, it's always, at least that's my approach, is to sort of say, you have literally everything. There's nothing more you can possibly ask me. Because as some of you may have seen with EIDL or other processes, that sort of process of going back and forth about what documents are in hand can be sort of unfortunate.
Okay. Anybody else before we wrap up? And Sean, maybe one more time, just so everyone has it. If they have questions, what's their best course of action?
The number for this program, let me get back to it. Sorry. I don't have it memorized just yet. I'll get there. Where's it at? Here we go.
And while you're looking, Sean, I just want to give a shout out. We have a couple people on the call today from our Small Business Development Center, Cheryl Peterson, who is our counselor for Shiawassee County, and then Emily Mara, who is actually specifically a restaurant consultant for the regional SBDC office. I know would both be available to help and support. Cheryl or Emily, do either one of you want to say anything?
Hi, thank you, Justin. This is Emily. I would recommend that you print off the sample application. It is about 10 pages. Practice, go through it now. Make sure that you have all of the questions down. And as soon as it opens, you should be able to breeze through it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes if you practice. But if you're going in blind, and all of these are available for you, these tools that the SBA has made available for you, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot ahead of time. So just practice, practice, practice. And if you have questions, please do not try to call Cheryl and I all at once on Monday when these are being opened, because we want to be able to have the time to help you. So if there are questions ahead of time, make sure that you reach out now and don't wait. Thank you so much, Sean, for doing this.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. And then Sean did put the information there in the chat. So thank you, Sean, for that. Yep.
No problem. Yep. 844-279-8898.
Great. Okay. Well, last call. Anybody have anything before we wrap here? Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining. We are taping this. We will be putting this on our YouTube page for those that were not able to make it, or if you want to go back and watch it as well. Thank you all for making time to be here today. Sean, thank you so much for your help. Obviously, this is a very important program for our businesses, and we really, really hope we can get a good turnout from Shiawassee County on this and hopefully get a lot of dollars into the community. So thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody, for participating today. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.